You are listening to the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to show number 20. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 18th February 2006. Last week I promised that we'd have an interview ready with Steve Kay, but things didn't work out, and we'll hear from Steve Kay in about 2 to 3 weeks. Instead, today we will be talking about the black sheep of project management. Yes, project risk. Well, I only have one announcement today, and the announcement is once again that I have free software to give away. And this software is VIP Team To-Do List, and you can find them at todolistsoft.com, and they write about the application. VIP Team To-Do List is a professional time and task management software for managing projects, workflow and resources in small and mid-sized businesses. It enables team leaders and team members to create, manage and share to-do lists within the teams by email. And if you would like to participate, if you would like to get a shot at winning a license of this software, we have 2 to give away. All you have to do is send an email to pmpodcast@gmail.com. In the subject line, put to-do list, and in the body, write your name and what country you're writing from. And if your email reaches me by February the 21st of 2006, you'll get a chance at winning this. The winners will be announced in the next show, which is on February the 25th. That's it for announcements, and now there is some listener feedback that I have from you. And it comes to us from Anis from Canada, and she writes, "Hi Cornelius. I'm following the show from the beginning, and I'm presently working on building a PMO in my company. So I went back to show number 8, and I was wondering, how did you succeed to insert a project management methodology into one page? Could you please send me an example of that? And if you have some other interesting links regarding this subject, please don't hesitate to send them to me. I find your show very interesting and wish you a good move to the new house." And this is signed by Anis Malouche from Montreal in Canada. Well, Anis, let me give you a response right here. Well, if you listen to last week's show, I answered a question from Etienne Danuamaric from Spain, and he asked for simple methodologies. And I told him, well, the methodologies are usually template-based, but what's more important in project management methodologies really is the processes behind them, and that you implement these processes right at your company, and that these processes are fit for your company and just work for you. Well, it's the same with this one-page methodology that I have here. I didn't actually shorten the methodology down to one page. I shortened the templates down to one page. I mean, when it comes to a project, we still have to go through the normal processes: initiation, planning, execution, controlling, closing, or whatever major phases you're following yourself. So that still has to happen, but the documentation of what we're doing in these 5 processes here, that I've been able to cut down to one page. Now, we are an IT shop, and we have supporting processes for what we do. We have time tracking, we have code management, release management, we have testing processes. So this has all been in place. And when our mother company came and they told us, you now have to use our heavy-duty project management methodology, which consists of the following 45 templates, we just shook our heads, because our projects are very short. We release software every month. The average is actually 33 hours on our project. I'm hard-pressed to actually call them projects, but we call them anyway. So what we did is we took those 45 templates and we shortened it to one, which is 1 page in length. And as long as your project in our company is less than 240 hours, you're allowed to use this 1-page template. If it's more than 240 hours, then you'll have to go the big way, and you'll have to pick and choose from the 45 templates that we have to use. So, that much said, and here is what the template contains. It's actually 3 pages in length. The first page is nothing but the title page, name of the project number and that. The second page is project administration, who wrote the project, who's the sponsor, who approved it, and those kind of things. And then page number 3, that's really the one-pager. And we have 4 major sections there. Section number 1 is a request overview, and all that you do really there is you copy-paste the email that the customer sent you, or you write a quick note about the interview that you had with the customer. Section 2, business requirements. There you go in and you write about what exactly it is that the customer wanted. Section number 3, functional and technical specifications. And in there you'll talk about the current functional and technical overview, so a description of what's happening today. New functional and technical definition, where would you like to take it into the future, and then additional conservation like data output, timing, performance, backup, those kind of things. So those were the first 3 sections, and of course the 4th and last section is testing, and in there we'll talk about unit testing, system integration testing, and user acceptance testing. So the only reason why I was able to cut our methodology down to 1 page is because we have the supporting processes in place. Well, I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of this, and hope that this answer was helpful for you. And talking about helpful, let us move on to the helpful resources and absolutely zero project management news. Must have been a very slow news week. I couldn't find anything that I found worthwhile to tell you about in the news, so we'll just be talking about the helpful resources today. Last Sunday, when I started thinking about these helpful resources, I thought it might be a good idea if I focused on one theme only, and I was thinking about talking about open source project management software, free project management software that's out there. And it just so happens that Great Minds Think Alike and 2 other blogs that are out there, Project Steps and PM Think, also started talking about free project management software this week. Very interesting. So great project management resources think alike. So what I did is I went onto the web and I looked around for what alternatives are there out there in terms of free project management software, so you don't have to go out and buy these humongously expensive tools. Now mind you, this is not supposed to be a review of these tools. This is just supposed to be a quick overview to give you an idea what's out there. So if you're currently thinking about implementing a project management software, or if your license runs out and you have to renew it, why not look into these tools here? But remember, take it with a grain of salt. You should go through a sound evaluation and making sure that when you download and use one of these free software tools that I'm going to mention, that you get what you actually need. So the first one that I have here is called Project Open, and this is really a big thing. This is not just project management, this is an integrated tool. It has various modules. It has a finance module, project management module, custom management, supplier management, HR management, knowledge management, etc. So this is really a big, almost customer relationship management with integrated project management that you can get. The next one I found is called Open Workbench, and they write about themselves. Open Workbench is an open source Windows-based desktop application that provides robust project scheduling and management functionality and is free to distribute throughout the enterprise. Once users need to move beyond desktop scheduling to a workgroup, division, or enterprise-wide solution, they can upgrade to CA's Clarity system, a project and portfolio management system. So I found this one here very interesting because the company gives away for free their Windows-based desktop application, so you can just use that. But as soon as you need to have some sort of a server-based integrated system, then you'll have to buy their what is it called? Clarity system here. The next one on my list is called Dot Project, the open source project management tool. And they write, Dot Project is a volunteer-supported project management application. There is no company behind this project, and it is managed, maintained, developed, and supported by a volunteer group and by the users themselves. The software is free to anyone who would like to download it. Day-to-day support is provided by free by volunteers. If you would like to see the system in operation, use the demo link in the modules list on the left top of the site. Well, this is pretty much the norm here, that when you get these free tools, that they are, well, there is no company behind them. It's all volunteer based. I found this Dot Project here very interesting because they actually give you an online demo, so you don't really have to download it. You can try it out online. Next one on the list is PH Project, an open source groupware suite. And they write, PH Project is a modular application for the coordination of group activities and to share information and documents via the internet and internet. And this is a really big one. It continues here. Components are group calendar, project management, time card system, file management, contact management, mail client, and 9 other modules. Now, here's the big one. PHP Project supports 36 languages and 7 databases. So probably no matter where in the world you are, you will find your language available here with PH Project. Now you may be wondering, where did I find all of these? Well, first of all, of course, I started at Google, but whenever I look for free software on the web, anything that I need, be it a word processor or some sort of a graphics tool or you name it, I go to a site called sourceforge.net. This is the open source central for software. And you'll find a link in the blog which will take you to sourceforge.net and to all their tools that are listed under project management. And 2 I would like to feature here, and just because I found them interesting. The first one is Gantt Project 2.0. This is a Java-based MS Project compatible desktop scheduling tool. Oh, this is very interesting. It's MS Project compatible, so this means you can probably use Project Server in the back and use this tool in the front. I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like it from what I was able to understand on their website. So very interesting to keep your cost down here. The second one I found on sourceforge.net, very interesting, is called Extreme Project Management Tool. This is an open source project from Tegonal, company from Germany, they write. And it's to provide a web-based project management tool using the principles of extreme programming, XP. So I found this one very interesting because it's a niche software for extreme programming and project management, extreme project management. So very nice to see that even these niche tools have a way of supporting us project managers out there. There are tons more free project management tools out there. Let me just run down the names of a few. So there is Pygant, Todo, GeForce Project Management Tool, Archivo, and then finally there is the really interestingly named PMI, the Project Management Interface. Well, if you want to, as always, read up in detail about all these helpful resources here, about all these free project management tools, then go to pmpodcast.blogspot.com and you will find links to each and every item that I have just mentioned here. And once again, this was not meant to be a full review of this. This was just to give you sort of an idea, a helpful resource to start if you are looking for free project management software. So much for that. And now let us move on to the Project Management Podcast's tip of the week. As always, with some background music. And it comes this week again from music.podshow.com. The artist is called George Fletcher Bourbon Renewal. He's from New York, and the song that you will hear in the background is called Rumble Groove. The project management tip of the week is manage your customer relationship. Now, the reason why I'm featuring that tip this week is your personal relationship with your customer is a major success factor in your project. If you manage your customer relationship well, your customer will be on your side even through the toughest moments in your project. Well, how do you manage your customer relationship well? I got 4 points here. Number 1, build a rapport with your customer. You're going to have to work with your customer for some time, so try and get to know them personally. I'm not saying that you have to start hanging out with them, but show them that you're genuinely interested in them as a person. So try to get this onto the personal level a little bit, because the better you know your customer, the easier communication is going to be. Second, listen to what your customer has to say. They pay your salary, so they pay for what you're doing in the end. So they have a right to be listened to, and they have a right to be taken seriously. Third, you have to be a valuable consultant to your customer. If you find that some of your customers' ideas or decisions are not beneficial for their company and for the project, tell them so. Show them that you care about the end product and that you want to deliver something good. I have personally found that challenging my customer in a business-like fashion and working together with them towards a great product is the best way to win them over. Well, and finally, number 4, communicate. Never ever leave your customer in the dark about what's happening. If a week goes by during which you haven't called your customer, you have made a major mistake. At least give them a call and ask if there is anything that they need. And of course, regular status reports, weekly status reports are an absolute must. So there you go, project management tip of the week. Manage your customer relationship. Let's move on to the main topic of today's show, risk management. Now, in the opening of today's show, I said that we would be talking about the black sheep of project management. Why would I call risk management the black sheep of project management? Well, think about it. How important, in your opinion, is risk management? How important is it for a project manager to understand the impact that possible risks can have on the project? And how many times have you personally actually gone through just basic risk management or even extensive risk management on your project? Well, there you go.
The Project Management Podcast's definitions.
Here's my definition of risk management. I define risk as anything on the project that can go wrong or right. I define risk management as the process which concerns itself with the identification, measurement, control, and minimization of these risks so that the possible impact of the risk is reduced to an acceptable level. And acceptable, of course, I define as meaning something completely different on each project. And that's my definition. To start out with risk management, I did a little comparison for you of the methodologies, PRINCE2, PMBOK, 10-step, and also the APMBOK, and looked at what they say how risk management should be handled. Well, Prince 2 talks about risk management in various sections of the handbook. It starts out at initiating a project, where they discuss refining the business case and risk. Then in planning, they look at analyzing the risk, and in managing stage boundaries, they talk about managing the risk log. And overall, they talk about the principles of risk tolerance, risk responsibility, and risk ownership. What I like about this here is the fact that risk management is kind of distributed throughout the whole handbook. It starts at the beginning in the initiation phase, and it continues throughout. So this is a good way of showing that risk management is something that you need to do throughout your project. The PMBOK 3rd edition, on the other hand, has taken risk management and created its own knowledge area from it, called Project Risk Management. This, of course, puts a strong focus on risk management by pulling it all together into one main chapter. And in this chapter, they talk about risk management planning, risk identification, qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, risk response planning, and risk monitoring and control. So there's the big difference between those two. One distributes it throughout the whole book, and the other one pulls it together into one chapter. So it's a question of what you prefer. One gives emphasis on risk management as an area of knowledge. The other one says it needs to be throughout the whole project. Take it or leave it. Either way is really fine. The third methodology I looked at is 10-step. And like the PMBOK, in the 10-step methodology, risk management is pulled together into one chapter, where they talk about managing risk processes, risk techniques, risk deliverables, and also they talk about risk in building work plan activities. But they quite clearly say that the first time you perform the risk evaluation is in their first process, 1.0, define the work. And then that additional risk identification should occur throughout the project on a scheduled basis, maybe monthly, quarterly, or at the completion of a major milestone. Lastly, I looked at the APMBOK, the 4th edition, and you have to understand that unlike the first three, the APMBOK is really a high-level framework, and it doesn't go much into the exact details of what you need to do, which processes to follow, what templates, input, tools, techniques, you name it, you're going to have to use. So this is very high level. And they write, risk management covers the process of identification, assessment, allocation, and management of all project risk. Risks are present in all projects, whatever their size and complexity, and whatever industry or business sector. Risk exists in a consequence of uncertainty. In project management terms, risks are those factors that may cause a failure to meet the project's objectives. Well, in conclusion, every one of these 4 methodologies recognizes the importance and need for risk management. The emphasis here really lies on the suggested tools and when in the methodology you're supposed to work on the risk. Let's move on from the theory to the reason why most project managers actually don't do risk management. And that's quite simple. Most of us don't really manage projects that are large enough to require to us that we establish a risk management framework. Most of us manage small and medium-sized projects, which can even be considered repetitive. For 3 years, for instance, I worked as a project manager in web development, and I built about 6 intranets, extranets, and internet websites for my customers. And there, it was first of all repetitive, and there just wasn't enough time or money to do an in-depth risk analysis. My external customers wouldn't have wanted to pay for all of that. Well, they would have called it overhead. Additionally, the impact of what I was doing was also quite low. I mean, nobody was going to die if we had delivered the website a week late. Okay, we would have missed the deadline, but no real large impact would have happened. However, this cannot be an excuse. This is only an explanation of why many project managers don't look at risk. Let's continue to look at risk management processes in general, and then I'd like to finish up by giving you a tip that will enable you and any other project manager on any given project to easily manage risks and not to lose sight of them. The theory says that you have to start out by identifying the risk. Figure out what risks you have on your project and which ones you want to focus on. And you can do that in using several methods. First of all, my personal starting point is I look at past projects. What issues did we have then? What issues did we have on these projects? And can these issues be translated into the current project? If so, I add them to the list. Well, here are the common methods that are described in many resources that you will find all over the place. Well, first of all, there is the objectives-based risk identification. Look at your objectives, look at the goals that your project is supposed to reach, and define the risks that you have based on these objectives. Next, there is the scenario-based risk identification. Ask yourself, what if? What if this happens on the project? What if this result is an outcome? What kind of risks are we running into? Then there is the very theoretically named taxonomy-based risk identification. This is a very structured approach. Basically what this means is you break down your project into classes, elements, and attributes, and you build your questionnaire, a questionnaire, based on these classes, elements, and attributes. And you go and you ask for feedback, for responses from project stakeholders at all levels using the questionnaire that you have built. Next, you can do common risk checking as part of identifying risks. In several industries, you will find that lists with known risks are available. Compare these lists with your project, like I do with my past projects. Find out if they translate and use those risks. And consider also all sources where risks can come from is another way of identifying them. Look at your project itself. Look at your organization. Look at the environment that you're building your project in and identify any risks that come from these project, organization, and environment levels. Anything really can be a risk as you're doing the risk identification. Don't exclude anything. As a very interesting example, in 2005, I heard a presentation by a representative from the NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And he was talking about a offsite that they had where they took all their project team members to identify project risk. And at the onset of these few days, they said, we want to talk about the risks, but please don't give us every single thing that you can think of, because we are not going to drop the satellite onto the floor. Okay, and you guessed it, yes. As the project progressed, Murphy's Law hit, things just went astray and they did drop their satellite, which cost them quite a bit of money. So when you do the risk analysis, don't exclude any risk that you can come up with. The next step in risk management following the identification is the risk assessment or risk analysis. This means define the probability of a risk and what impact this risk is going to have on your project. This will allow you to prioritize your risks. Most commonly, this is done by assigning a probability and a magnitude to each identified risk. For instance, the probability that it's going to rain is very high, but because we are working indoors, the impact of this is going to be very low. Okay, an employee may be late to work when it's raining, but that's probably just about it. However, if we worked outdoors, then the impact of the rain would be a lot higher because we would probably have to stop our work. Alright, and if you do assign numerical values to probability and magnitude, you can then multiply this. So probability times magnitude gives you a factor. And you can calculate a risk number, and that risk number will allow you to prioritize your risk. The most common way to actually document this assessment is, simply in a table, and you can find these tables and templates for this all over the place. One thing that I'd like to feature here is the Method 123, their free risk management kit. And I'll put a risk up on the blog, so you can just find it through my website. What they say is all that you have to do for getting this, it's free, quote unquote. You have to sign up for their newsletter, and you will receive the risk management kit, including risk process, risk forms, and risk register, valued at $19, absolutely free. So this is probably a very good thing. A, you get a newsletter from Method 123, and B, you get their risk management kit. The next step in risk management, following identification and assessment, is risk treatment, risk control, or risk response planning. Whatever you call it, in this step, you're going to figure out, what am I going to do about these risks? How am I going to respond to these risks? The PMBOK talks about two types of risks. It talks about negative risks and positive risks. And for each of those, it has 3 ways of response planning. For negative risks, first of all, it talks about avoiding them. So what you do is you change your project plan so that the risk is never going to happen. Second, it talks about transfer, risk transfer. Give the risk to someone else. Instead of a fixed price project, for instance, make it a time and material project so that you, who is executing the project, don't have the risk of overrunning your budget. This doesn't mean that the risk goes away, that the risk is eliminated, but it moves the responsibility of dealing with the risk away from you and gives it to someone else. So we have avoid and transfer, and the third one is mitigate. And mitigate means that you are going to take action to reduce the probability or the impact of a particular risk. For instance, on your project, instead of using the latest technology that's available out there, which is of course risky because it's unproven, well, use an older technology, a proven technology that you know is going to work. Alright, so much for the negative risks. Avoid, mitigate, avoid, transfer, and mitigate. Then for the positive risks, you're going to do pretty much the opposite of what you do with negative risks, because positive risks, those are opportunities for your project. You really want them to happen. Well, first of all, instead of avoiding them, you exploit them. Accept the opportunity and change your plan in such a way that you get the full benefit of this positive risk on your project. Second, instead of transferring the risk to someone else, you share the positive risk with someone else. This is beneficial if you are unable to reap the benefits of this. So find someone else, a stakeholder on the project, who can accept this opportunity and who can deal with it and make it work to their benefit. And lastly, instead of mitigating a risk, a negative risk, you enhance a positive risk. So what you're going to do is you take action so that you improve the probability that this opportunity is going to happen. Well, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to look at positive risks? Well, positive risks can destroy your project. An example that I heard a little while back is the success that a museum had. So they opened up the museum and they expected a certain number of people coming to the museum. Let's say they had a parking lot which enabled 100 people to park. Well, the success was so great that they needed more parking spaces in the parking lot. Luckily for them, they had an adjacent lot which they were able to use as an overflow for this parking lot. So success on your project can be just as detrimental as failure. So let's review these 3 steps. You identify the risk, you assess the risk, and then you plan your responses. The final step in risk management is do it again and again and again. Risk management is an ongoing process. New risks will pop up as your project progresses, and you have to revisit all 3 of these steps again and again to keep on top of your risks. Well, that's about the theory of how you go about on analyzing your risks and working with your risks. Let's move on to that tip which I promised on how you can keep track of the risks on your project in a very simple fashion. Well, first of all, let me start with a disclaimer. This works on small projects, maybe even medium-sized projects. However, if you have a large or an extra large project, you're going to have to implement a full-sized risk management framework, possibly even with resources dedicated to nothing but continued risk management to keep on top of your risks. So here's what I do in my projects. I begin by identifying the risks, and I pretty much followed the process that we explained earlier. I look at the objectives, I create scenarios, I look at common risks, and I also look at risks that are inherent to the project itself, like what if we lose a project team member, for instance. Right? Based on that, I identify my risk. Then I usually don't go and do a formalized assessment. I don't assign probability and impact. Instead, I just take my list and I sort my list according to gut feeling. And I start with the worst risk at the top and the one that worries me least at the very bottom. Then I take this list and I talk to each of my project team members individually and I ask them, well, this list, do you agree with this list? Is there anything else that you think is that I need to put on here? Do you agree with the way I ordered them? Is this really the worst case that can happen? Is this the best thing that can happen? And based on that, I update the list. And now, here comes the trick. I take the top 5 to 10 of these risks and I put them on the agenda of my weekly status meeting with the team. In this way, the risks are always brought back onto the table once a week, and we take a few minutes, a few moments even, to look at them and to discuss them. This will make everybody aware of the fact, oh yeah, we still have this major risk looming above. What if it happens? What can we do about it? So everybody is always kept abreast of the risks. To me, this is a very simple and easy way to keep track of and never lose sight of, in particular, of my risk. Give this a try. It has worked for me in the past, and I bet it will work for you as well. We are ending today's show with a look at a new podcast out there that talks about project management. This podcast about project management is by TSI, that's True Solutions Incorporated. And you can find them at www.true-solution.com. And my review today is on their 47 free videos, which they call their lunchtime lecture series. And yes, I did say 47, and I did say free. Well, here's what they say in their About Us. At TSI, our focus is on the human side of technology, people, projects, and processes. We assist in the preparation, development, implementation, and adoption of technology and its impact to business processes and our clients' corporate culture. From program and project management to change and resource management, we can help. TSI offers training that enables professional and leadership development, from business basics to global project management methodologies. And when you are surfing on their website, you will also see that TSI offers basic and advanced project management training, as well as training in methodologies and certifications for the CAPM, the PMP, Prince2, and also CMMI. So they're really almost a one-stop shop here for your project management certification and training. Well, about their podcasts and their videos. If you remember the project management podcast from the 24th of December last year, I told you in there that a new project management podcast would be available sometime in January of 2006. Well, this is it here. The TSI podcast is it. And they are now publishing their 47 lunchtime lecture videos also at a podcast. I did, however, not find a way to subscribe to the podcast directly from their website. I believe that at this moment the only way to subscribe to the podcast is via iTunes. So simply start iTunes, click on the music store, then on podcast and search for the three letters TSI and you'll easily find them. But you don't even have to do that because, like I said, the lunchtime lecture series, they're originally 47 videos that you can view via the TSI website. And the podcast that you can subscribe to is simply the audio portion of the TSI lunchtime lecture videos. And this review that I'm giving you here today is actually mostly about the videos and only a little bit about the podcast. After all, you only get the audio in the podcast. They didn't do a video podcast at this. And I'm reviewing the videos because, well, you'll get the audio in the podcast as well. So the videos at this point are more important from my point of view and more interesting too. Well, there is a registration for this. And even though they are free for download, you're going to have to give them something. You're going to have to give them your address, a working email, and a phone number. And although I don't usually like to do that and like to sign up for things that make you give them personal information, I think you get a lot in return for providing just this basic information. I think this is a good trade. Let's talk about the show itself here. The host of their lunchtime lecture series is TSI's Eric Nielsen. Eric is a PMP. The 47 lectures all focus on the PMBOK and to help you pass the PMP exam. They are all in English. And very good, these 47 lectures, they're all based on the most recent third edition of the PMBOK. So if you are in the process of preparing for your PMP exam, watching these videos will most likely benefit you. The first one is titled Getting to Know the PMBOK, and the next 44 lectures then focus on the individual processes as they are defined in the PMBOK, like scope definition, quality assurance, or managing stakeholders. In this, they pretty much follow the processes as they are laid out in the PMBOK. So one after the other takes you through the PMBOK. And the last 2 lectures are then on professional and social responsibility. And finally, there's one on passing your PMP exam. The lunchtime lectures that I watched had all a very similar rundown. First of all, Eric always uses the same opening and end for all shows. That, of course, gets a bit boring after a while. Once you watch 3 or 4, you know exactly what he's going to say. But you can, of course, just fast forward over these first about 50 seconds or so. After the 50 seconds of always the same opening, Eric does an introduction which is of various lengths on the topic of the lecture. And he does a really good job in this and gives a good and tight overview of these processes that he's talking about. And he doesn't just simply read out what the PMBOK says. No, more importantly, he adds emphasis on various key points. Then he moves on and looks at the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs of each of these processes. This is then followed by a look at what they call their must-know concepts for the lecture's process. These are bullet point statements. For instance, for the create work breakdown structure process, they have 15 must-know concepts, like the WBS serves as the basis for most subsequent planning activities, or the WBS has no time frame, it defines work only, or the lowest level elements of the WBS are called work packages, etc. And that's pretty much what you get in each of these 47 lectures. They are of various duration. Some are 5 minutes long, some are 20 minutes and longer. And this makes it easy for anyone to watch them. Well, yeah, during lunchtime lecture series, get it? Maybe even at your PC at work while you're eating your leftovers from last night's dinner at your desk. Each lecture is also accompanied by a downloadable companion transcript. The ones that I have downloaded are all 1 page long, and they give a brief overview of the processes, and then they list all the must-known concept. And this is a very handy reference to go back to and refresh your memory. My verdict? I would have loved to see True Solutions Incorporated publish their lunchtime lectures as video podcasts. Well, instead they have chosen to only publish the audio track as audio podcasts. My best guess is that because their videos are in Microsoft's WMV format, which doesn't play on the iPod, they chose not to convert all these videos into an iPod playable format. The sound quality of the audio podcast, the first one that I listened to, that should be improved. I hope they realize that and improve the quality for the future. However, there is great benefit in their 47 videos. The lunchtime lecture videos are valuable for everyone who is working on passing the PMP exam. It is a structured approach that will help you to get through the PMBOK cover to cover. Just watching these videos alone, however, will not enable you to pass the exam. You'll have to study diligently, and I suggest taking a preparation workshop as well. The videos are also a good reference and catch-up for all those among us who have not yet studied the latest PMBOK. Well, my PMP exam, for instance, was based on the second edition, the previous edition of the PMBOK, and I am considering watching these videos simply to catch up with the latest edition, because you all know how very, very boring it is to read the PMBOK. Well, in a nutshell, these 47 videos, that's good stuff. Well, so much for the TSI podcast here. And if you are a regular listener of the Project Management Podcast, you will have noticed that my verdicts for these good, bad, and ugly reviews are usually leaning towards the good. You may be wondering, well, does Cornelius not have the backbone to say that something is bad? Well, the truth lies far from that. I have found that there is so much good content out there that I have simply decided to skip over the really bad stuff. I mean, why should I waste your time here listening to a review of a very bad website? And more importantly, why should I waste my own time doing a review of a really bad project management related podcast episode? I am really trying to strive here at the Project Management Podcast to bring valuable information to you. Valuable information which will help you as a product manager. And taking more than 20 seconds to talk about a horrible website or a ghastly video is simply not helpful, not for you and not for me. Well, that much said, do you have any suggestions for a review? Send me links to PM resources that you think I should review. Send me links to anything, even better. I mean, if you have a microphone attached to your computer, do the review yourself and send it in. Send me the audio file. I will be more than happy to put your review into a show here on the podcast. All right, so much for that. And in our next show, I will give you a review of another podcast. And this is Jerry Manya's new podcast on project management, which is titled The 3 P's of Project Success. And he's already got 2 shows out there. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. In our next show, I have an interview planned with Dale Brown, and we'll be talking about how he became a PMP. As always, you can find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. And when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. A project gets a year late, 1 day at a time. With that, do keep a project issues log. It will help you to keep track and prioritize your issues. It will also help you later on when you'll have to answer some tough questions about why things have gone wrong. Until next time.